All right, so let's get into Revelation, chapter 3. So we're walking through the last book of the Bible because we believe that this book really, truly changes how we live our lives right now. It's not just interesting information. I believe Revelation changes life right now. If you haven't snagged this yet, we have a reading plan that I'm really encouraging people to do as we walk along in this series. There are some printed in the back in the lobby out there. The idea is you read a chunk, and then we come in here and we fix it, and we help figure it out. So last week you would have read chapters 5 through 8. You would have read all about horses and scrolls and the sky turning black, and it's a wild ride. But we'll talk about those things today. I did mention this the first week, and I know many of you have echoed how good it is. There is a book, you can find it on Amazon, Revelation by Michael W. Newman. He's an LCMS, a Lutheran pastor, and he's fantastic, a good friend of mine. He wrote a really good commentary on this book, and it reads very devotionally. It's just so easy to pick it up, read it, goes through the entire book of Revelation. It's a really great resource. A commentary like this is very helpful for a book like Revelation because Revelation is written in a literary style that we are not very used to. What is that literary style? Anyone? Apocalyptic. This is a literary style that intentionally uses symbols and images and these larger-than-life scenes, but they're all meant to communicate a message. They were so familiar with apocalyptic writing back then. We are not as used to this today. For example, they knew instantly that things like numbers communicated messages when you were using apocalyptic style. It was not like a hidden message. Everyone just knew it. Like, for example, 10, good. 7, really good. 6, not so good. 12 was a number that represented how God works. The church, Old and New Testament. 4 was talking about the creation, the 4 directions and the ends of the earth, all those things. Okay, so numbers that spoke particular things to particular cultures. We know nothing about that, right? Right? We know nothing about that. If anyone knows 6, 7, right? If you got teenagers in the house or fifth grade students, right? If you don't know what this is, don't worry about it. I'm not going to explain it. It's just one of those things. Now, but if you do know this, or have heard this, it'd be like someone from the first century being like 6, 7. Like what are you talking about? And then it's a long story. It's a long story. It's almost like that with Revelation. It's packed with so many details, so many images, things they would have been very familiar with back then. But for us, when we read it, some of those things we know. Other things, truthfully, have been lost with history, but we do our best to wade through it. Now, I do mean this, that Revelation is overloaded with details. And what I mean by this is that if you were here the previous weeks, we read Revelation less like what? Like an engineer's blueprint, right? That's not the best way to look at Revelation, a blueprint where you got to figure out every little detail and every measurement and all the different things. You'll go crazy. But more, how do we want to read Revelation? Like a mural, right? A mural where there's just so much to take in. Like how do you start unpacking something like this? Like you stare at it, you look at it, you talk about it, you step away from it and come back to it a few months later, and more experiences, you start to see more things. You look at other murals that teach you other things and then come back to it. This is how we read Revelation, right? There's so much to take in, you couldn't possibly take it all in at once. Okay, so today we will dive into the next section of Revelation, which truthfully we're going to look at chapters 4 through 7 today. But in this series, we do need to touch on some really big beliefs that are out there about the end times. Revelation, this is one of the areas where you're going to see big differences between churches, big differences between denominations. And I will say this, there are many, many faithful, they're well-meaning teachers out there, but they look at Revelation, this book of the Bible, differently than we do. I will also say that there are some not so well-meaning teachers out there who use this book to drive like fear and money out of people. So our job is to know the Bible, study it carefully, so we're not just like tossed to and fro like the waves, like Ephesians tells us. So the big concept I want to talk about today is the word rapture. Rapture. Have you heard the word rapture before? Raise your hand if you have. Okay, cool. This word usually, what does this word make you think of? Brief. What was that? Dinosaurs. Oh, like velociraptor. Like that. What else does it make you think of? I love that. Snatched. 2012. Right? Okay, there you go. Rapture. Rapture. So it's a Latin word. It means to take suddenly. Now, you're not going to find this word in Revelation. You're not going to find this word actually in the Bible, but it's a word that many of us know well. This word is often used to teach a concept that's been kind of sensationalized, especially over the last 30 years. We do not believe in the rapture like many people teach out there, but I will describe it to you here because it's helpful for as we unpack Revelation. Okay, so here's the gist. This idea teaches that one day Jesus will come back, but when he does, he's going to come back secretly. And if you're a follower of Jesus, he will rapture you. He will take you away instantly, suddenly, and everyone else will be left behind, right? And all they're going to see is your clothes like in a pile on the ground. Poof, like the believers in Jesus all of a sudden are gone, taken to heaven, safe with him. And this is how they paint the timeline. Again, this is not what we teach, but this is what is taught out there. If you're raptured in that secret return of Jesus, you're good. But if you're left behind, you're going to go through a period of intense tribulation here on earth. Wars, famines, plagues, persecutions, horrible things. But if you can make it through that, Jesus will come a second time, and then it'll all be good. Again, this is not what we believe, but this is a popularized idea that you might have heard before, especially because of a famous book series called, anyone? Left Behind. Anyone read this? I read this when it came out. 1995 is when the series started, 12 books, actually, lots to this series. Now, rapture beliefs. I gave you the very simplified version in that last graphic, but those who subscribe to it have a very detailed timeline, they would call it, of how the end times are going to go. And it spans like over 1,000 years or more. This is reading Revelation like a blueprint. It's reading too much into the numbers and the symbols and the events that are described. This is not reading it like apocalyptic style. And truthfully, these ideas, they have not been around for that long. In the scope of the church, it's been about 200 years this has been taught. It's not from the beginning. It's not the followers of Jesus. It's not like the early church. We don't find any of this until the last like 200 years. So how do we sort this stuff out? What do we believe about this? Where do we go to? The Bible, right? Some key verses for rapture teaching actually come from Matthew 24. Turn there if you'd like, but I'm going to put some key verses up here on the screens. Let's read this together. Now, concerning that day and hour, no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, except the Father alone. Okay, this is a quick aside, a different topic, but if you meet someone who claims to know when the end of the world is going to be, this is going to tell you two things. Number one, they're wrong, because not even Jesus knows when the end of the world will be. That's interesting. Second, you can probably just rule that day out. Right? Because it's just not going to be then. The most recent one, if you follow this, when was the last end of the world supposed to be? Remember this? Oh, not 2012. More recent. Youth in the room? September. Last September. Rapture talk. It was a big deal that went viral on social media. September 23rd and 24th. It was supposed to be a 2-day event where Jesus was going to return again. Did that happen? No, it did not. So there you go. Okay, continuing on here in Matthew, let's read this. As the days of Noah were, so the coming of the Son of Man will be. For in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day Noah boarded the ark. They didn't know until the flood came and swept them all away. This is the way the coming of the Son of Man will be. Then 2 men will be in the field. One will be taken and one left. 2 women will be grinding grain with a hand mill. One will be taken and one left. Therefore, be alert, since you don't know what day your Lord is coming. So actually, the force of this parable Jesus told, it's actually just meant to remind us that Jesus will come back suddenly, right? No one can predict this. That's the big picture here. But you can go a little bit into the details of this parable. Now, here's the big question. Do you want to be taken, raptured, or left behind? Who wants to be taken? Who wants to be left behind? Okay. Would you agree with this? That answer matters deeply. Getting that team right? That this matters deeply. Now, let's look at the context very carefully. What story got linked to this teaching? Noah's Ark. Let's go back. Okay, so it likens this to the days of Noah. When Noah boarded the ark, and then all of a sudden the flood came and then did what? Swept all of evil away. And who was left behind? Noah. So what this is saying is that one day evil will be raptured, gone, taken away for good, and the followers of Jesus will be the ones who are left behind, right? So rapture theology actually gets this backwards. They hang it all on like this text right here. So get the team right, right? Left behind is what we want. Maybe the biggest takeaway, though, from this teaching is this, that when Jesus returns, like that's it. He comes back once. We don't have to fear like this period of tribulation. We should get busy telling people about Jesus. You can imagine how that first stage return and second stage return can actually steal away from the mission, right? You don't feel as pressed because, well, they'll have a second chance to be able to believe in Jesus for the second coming. No, when he comes back, that is it. And Revelation, it's not meant to give us this like big, complicated timeline like we saw up there on the screens. What is the goal of Revelation? To bring what? Hope. Anyone need some hope today? Right? Every day, right? If we're getting fear and doom and gloom out of Revelation, something has gone wrong. That's not what the book is trying to do for us, okay? So, last week, let's go back into the book itself. Revelation 2 and 3, we saw that Revelation was being written to some people who needed hope. Life was not easy for Christians in the first century. We took a look at these letters that were written to these individual congregations, and they were going through some pretty challenging things. So it was so challenging that people were giving up hope that life would ever get better. And truthfully, we know that too, right? We see days like this, just like they saw back then. We see things in our world that just are not right. Days where life seems hopeless and hope is shattered, right? Have you had a day like that recently? When grief rips our heart apart. This is when Jesus says, hey, I want you to know. I want you to know I see those things. I know those things. And help is on the way. That's why Revelation was written. This is the heart of Jesus. There's a reason why Revelation starts with these letters to these real churches and these real problems that they were having, because from then on, chapters 4 to 22, the rest of the book, we see the plan that God has put in place to make all things new. So in chapter 4, after these letters are written to these churches, Jesus says, hey, look up here. The door of heaven opens up, right? And we get a glimpse inside. The first image we see is actually the throne, God the Father sitting on the throne. Throne, by the way, is mentioned 50 times in Revelation. It's in almost every chapter. The idea being God's in charge. He knows what's up. He's still in charge. Even when life looks like chaos, he still sits on the throne. And so I want to take a look at these verses from chapter 4. Again, the letters were written to these congregations. They're losing hope that things will get better. And then heaven opens up and shows them this. Let's read this together. Immediately, I was in the Spirit, and there was a throne in heaven, and someone was seated on it. The one seated there had the appearance of jasper and carnelian stone. A rainbow that had the appearance of an emerald surrounded the throne. Around the throne were 24 thrones, and on the throne sat 24 elders, dressed in white clothes with golden crowns on their heads. Flashes of lightning and rumblings and peals of thunder came from the throne. 7 fiery torches were burning before the throne, which are like the 7 spirits of God. Something like a sea of glass, similar to crystal, was also before the throne. 4 living creatures covered with eyes in front and in back were around the throne on each side. And then all of this brings praise and glory and honor to God the Father seated there on the throne. Now, this is a lot of images, right? What do we have here? We've got the living creatures. We've got the 24 elders. We got jewels and torches and thunder and lightning. All of this stuff starts getting added to the mural. And that's just the opening scene of Revelation. The letter then continues on with this message to give people hope, to see the big picture of what's going on. Okay, and so at this point, there's another literary term that you need to know. Okay, the literary term is this converging climax. This is a style of writing that actually Revelation uses. Actually, many TV shows and movie sagas and book series use this too. It's actually a formula kind of that they follow. Most stories, if you know literature, most stories have a climax, like the event that everything's kind of pointing up to. A converging climax is a story where, especially where you have like a long book series or a long TV series or a movie series, and as you write those kinds of things, you've got lots of characters, lots of stories, lots of images that are all kind of simultaneously happening, but the author is taking all of those storylines, and it takes years and years for it all to unfold, but eventually they are all being pulled to one big epic final scene, like a final battle scene, or like a wedding or a big event that gets everyone in the room together. The idea is all these individual stories have been unfolding in such a way to get everyone in the final scene together. And when that happens, you have as many characters as possible showing up. Main characters, side characters, ones you forgot about along the way. Everyone is there for the story's grand finale. Harry Potter does this. If you're familiar with Avengers, this is exactly what happens. And guess what? Jesus did it first in Revelation. Okay, this is key. All of those like crazy details we see in Revelation, there is very little that's new. It's all from other parts of the Bible. The storylines are all converging. Everyone is showing back up again. Main characters and cameos and images and God's greatest events from the past. It all shows back up again for this final battle scene. And so we have, like, for example, these 24 elders. God worked in two really big groups of 12 in the Bible. In the Old Testament, 12 tribes of Israel. In the New Testament, 12 disciples was a reflection of that. 12 and 12 put together. Here's the old and the new here present for the grand finale. Same with the living creatures. 4 living creatures representing all living creatures. 4 directions, all the ends of the earth. Here they are, right here for the final battle scene. But we see a lot more than just this. The voice of God in this section is compared to a blasting trumpet. That happened in the book of Exodus. It's the same words, it's the same language. You know what else happened at Mount Sinai in the book of Exodus? When God showed up, guess what happened? There was lightning, peals of thunder. There was the Holy of Holies constructed with all of these beautiful stones and jewels and lampstands when the presence of God reappeared. You keep going along in Revelation, and we meet Jezebel. We meet the kings and queens from of old. We meet the powers of evil and death itself. If you got a hero, you got to have some villains that are pulled in. Keep reading in Revelation, and guess what you see? Plagues. This is fascinating. And not just any plagues. We see locusts. We see frogs. We see water turned to blood. Now think. Where have we seen that before? Exodus. Guess what else we see? A sacrificed Passover lamb. Guess what else we see? All the enemies of God drowned at the bottom of the sea. Now think. Where have we seen this before, right? The Old Testament. It's all the converging climax. All these things from the past get brought back for this final showdown between God and the powers of evil. Okay, so with that in mind, let's look at Revelation 5 through 7. So this is how that story starts to unfold. If you read this last week, you can probably summarize this section with maybe 3 words: a scroll, seals, and horses. Okay, but we'll read a little bit of it together. Let's read this. Then I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll with writing on both sides and sealed with 7 seals. Okay, so there's this scroll. It has 7 seals, like, embossed wax seals that no one can open this scroll. No one can even read it. Now that's kind of random, right? A scroll that no one can read. Well, guess what? Isaiah 29. There is a scroll written that no one can open and no one can read. Right? It's just a hearkening from the past. Now, this scroll, it comes down to not strength breaking open those seals, but worthiness. Who is worthy to open this scroll? And what's the answer? It's Jesus. There's only one. Only one can open this scroll, which represents bringing about the end of the story. Only one can do that, and that's going to be Jesus. So he starts opening this scroll, and you know what happens? It unleashes a war, right? This is how I think of it. This moment is like Jesus coming on scene, getting ready to do ministry, Christmas, and it's beautiful, and everyone's rejoicing and singing. But as he starts his ministry, guess who stands up tall? The devil, Satan. Evil itself. A war erupts. He rallies the troops, and we see this in the Gospels. And so here we go. One by one, Jesus is opening up these seals on this scroll. And what happens every time a seal opens? What happens? Horses start running. Horses with all these colors, black and red and green and white. It's like the Wizard of Oz. Every time a seal is opened, a horse and a rider starts running, and some pretty terrible things start to happen. Like, for example, when the second scroll a second seal is opened on this scroll. A horse comes out. It's red. It's fiery. It takes peace from the earth. And people start killing one another. There's persecution. There's murder. It's not a good thing. Every horse that starts riding, it brings these terrible things to the world. War, hate, murder, famine, death, persecution. Okay, so why horses? What would be your guess? Anyone? Powerful, okay. Rider, yeah. They must come from somewhere else in the Bible. If that's your guess, you're exactly right. Zechariah, chapter 1. Guess what? We've got horses and riders bringing end times messages to the world. You probably forgot about those horses from Zechariah, right? I forgot about those horses from Zechariah. Jesus did not forget about them. Here they are, showing up, converging climax for that final battle scene. Okay, so these people riding these horses, they bring terrible things to the world. Now, some would say, in other beliefs that are out there, well, these are the things that are going to happen during that tribulation period, one after another. We would say, no, as these seals are all being opened, it's describing the world as it is now. This is the world that we live in. Revelation is showing us, do you know this world where there's persecution and death, famine, hate, murder, war? We know this world, a world where evil runs rampant, right? Now, okay, remember, Revelation is a book of what? Hope, right? Okay, so what is this showing us? Your struggles right now, our struggles right now, are part of a cosmic war. It feels like lonely when we go through these kinds of things, isolating when we go through these things. And sometimes it raises the question, does God know about this stuff? Does he see this stuff? Does he care about this stuff? It feels like he's being very silent and the horses run wild. Right? All these terrible things happening. Now, why doesn't God just stop this? Right? Jesus, the one opening these seals, he's just standing by, watching it all happen. Well, he tells a quick story. This also comes in Matthew, called the parable of the weeds. In Matthew, he tells this parable, this story. This is all about the struggles that we go through now as believers. Why isn't God doing something about it? Jesus says this. He's like, well, it's like a farmer who plants this field of wheat, and it's beautiful and it's perfect. But then at night, an enemy comes in and sows weeds everywhere. And it's terrible. It's ruining stuff that's out there. And then Jesus says this. Let's read this together. So, do you want us to go and pull them up? The servants asked them, the weeds. No, he said. When you pull up the weeds, you might also uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. At harvest time, I'll tell the reapers, gather the weeds first and tie them in bundles to burn them, but collect the wheat in my barn. So the answer in this parable, the servants say, hey, should we just start pulling up the weeds? And the master says, no. Let both grow together, side by side, until harvest day. This is describing the world as it is now, where you and me and the followers of Jesus, we're living among weeds, right? Evil and famine and murder and persecution, it all is going on. Why doesn't God stop these things now? The wheat is still growing. This is God's heart. He wants more and more and more people, you and me, to be part of the final harvest. We see this in Matthew. We see this in Revelation. God's heart is people. If you uproot the weeds, it's going to mess up the wheat that is still growing. He wants more in the kingdom of God. Okay, last thing for today. We talked about those first 5 seals getting opened one by one, but then we get to the 6th seal. If you remember, if you did your reading, something different happens with the 6th seal. There's no more horses, but there is an earthquake. The sky goes dark, and evil runs away. Now think. When was there an earthquake and the sky going dark? Anyone? Yeah, right. On the day the Son of God died on a cross. Converging climax, right? Our God is not just sitting by doing nothing. As we go through terrible things going on here in the world around us, Revelation, the 6th seal, this moment is pointing us all to the day Jesus went to war against hate and violence and murder and persecution and death itself. Right? This is the day that Jesus sealed the fate of all of evil. It's the day Jesus sealed the fate for you and me. And I love this. Revelation, right? This whole section, the 6th seal is broken. We're given a small glimpse of the crucifixion, and then we catch a glimpse of God's heart. What was all of this for? Just going to war against evil and plagues and all that stuff? No. No, we get a glimpse of God's heart. 6th seal is broken, the sky goes dark, and all of a sudden we start seeing people. So many people. It starts with Israelites, and it starts trying to count them. 12, no. 24, no. 12,000 from every tribe of Israel. 144,000. It doesn't mean anything other than a lot. Right? A large representation of Israel, but we got room for more. Revelation lifts our eyes a little higher. How about people from all nations and all tribes? How about a number that no one can count? I mean, it'd be like the number of stars in the sky or sands on the seashore. Abraham, right? Converging climax. These are the ones who I've marked safe and secure, the ones I'm fighting for, Jesus says, the ones I'm going to war for, right? This is the scene of Revelation chapter 7. I want to read just these few verses from this moment right here, when all of a sudden John, the author who saw this vision, he sees this, and he says, "After this I looked, there was a mass multitude from every nation, tribe, people, and language, which no one could number, standing before the throne and the Lamb. They were clothed in white robes and palm branches in their hands." Ever heard of that before? Right? I'm going to skip ahead. One of the elders asked me, "Hey, who are these people wearing these robes? Where did they come from?" And he said, "They are the ones coming out of the great tribulation. They washed their robes, made them white in the blood of the Lamb. For this reason, they are before the throne of God. They serve him day and night in his temple. The one seated on the throne will shelter them. They will no longer hunger. They will no longer thirst. The sun will no longer strike them, nor will there be any scorching heat, for the Lamb who is at the center of the throne will shepherd them." Ever heard of that before? "He will guide them to springs of the waters of life, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes." Guess who's part of the converging climax? You are, and you are. All of us are, right? Our world, yes, feels like a mess, right? It feels like evil runs rampant today. All the while, as this war wages on, Revelation shows us exactly what is on God's mind today, right? We talked about things that are on our mind as we come into worship today. What's on God's mind? You are, always. May you trust and see hope in the God who died for you, who bled for you, who has a white robe waiting for you now and always. Would you please pray with me? Let's stand as we pray. Lord Jesus, we come into your presence today. Lord, you are the God who has done all things to make all things new, including us. Lord, bless us as we go through all kinds of trials and tribulations now in the world. Continue to point our eyes forward to the day that's coming because of your death and resurrection. Jesus, we see the day that we will be made new and in your presence forever. Until that day comes, Lord, give us perseverance, Lord, and give us drive to share your story with a harvest that's still out there, still growing, waiting to hear about your love. In your name we pray all these things, and everyone said together, Amen.
Hey, thanks for joining us for this session at Devoted. I really hope that it gave you some practical ways to engage the world around you this week in a godly way. But most of all, I hope that it reminds you how loved you are by Jesus. If you know of someone who could benefit from this session, please share it with them. And you can always find out more about our ministry and ways to support what we're doing here, which is sharing Jesus with the world at hcl.org. We'll see you next time.